Welcome to Ghostly.
Is the Tower of London haunted?
Ghostly is a podcast that comes out every other week. In each episode, we take a ghost story or paranormal event and look into its complete history. Rebecca then gives us evidence proving that the story is real, and my job is to debate those pieces of evidence and get you, the listener, prepared to vote on if it's real or not. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. And as always, we're your host. I'm Pat.
And I'm Rebecca.
So we're going to be doing the Tower of London, and I've been there. You've been outside of it.
Yes, I believe for some reason it was closed to visitors or
What?
something was happening, and I didn't make it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was inside. I saw the crown jewels.
Yep.
That's
And that's
one
funny
of the biggest things there.
because that's always what I think of with the Tower of
Yeah.
London. I'm like, oh, that's where the jewels are. But really, that's not maybe today that's kind of a big thing, but
Yeah.
we're going to learn there was a lot really more going on there.
Yeah. And they didn't even start bringing them. I mean, they weren't on display until the 1600s, too.
Yeah.
So, and actually, the biggest attraction there is to see like the knight's armor and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, the Tower of London is a castle that is located in London, if you hadn't guessed that yet. And, you know, it's called a tower because like the White Tower was the first thing that was created in there. And it was called the White Tower for a long time, actually.
Oh, okay.
On the River Thames, and was built on an old Roman wall.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Use that as your guide.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, they had like two areas, then they didn't have to construct.
Yeah. Okay.
And the Tower of London is unlike other castles. You know, like when you're picturing a castle in your head, this does not look like that because it's a series of buildings.
Right.
Yeah, there's a comedian that I follow on Instagram, and I can't remember his name right now, but he used to live in the Tower of London because his father was like the general something rather.
Yeah. People live there. I read something when I was doing my research where they're like, yeah, we have trouble getting pizza delivered here.
Yeah, that's one of the things he said too. Yeah. So there is a legend though about the Tower of London. I don't know if you knew this one. It says that as long as ravens remain on the grounds of the Tower of London, the kingdom endures.
Like the birds?
Yes, ravens. Yeah. Not like the Baltimore Ravens, the football team.
Well, I didn't know if they called like a guard a raven or something. There was the family with the last name of Ravens.
Yeah, so there is actually caretakers for the ravens.
Oh,
that make sure that it's, you know, that they're healthy and everything. Because if they go away, so does the kingdom.
Interesting.
All right, well, we're going to get into that in a minute. First, we're going to do shout-outs. There are two ways to get a shout-out in Ghostly. The first way is to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. We prefer those 5-star reviews, but we read any and all reviews that we receive. And the second way is to become a member on Patreon. Just go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on Patreon in the menu bar. We have a few different tiers to choose from, and from $1 to $10. So it's, you know, definitely affordable. Yeah, so we have a lot of different tiers to choose from. Yeah,
and there's a lot of great episodes out there for Ghostly X. You also get episodes early, lots of good stuff.
Yeah, but you get our back catalog of all these episodes too.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
We hope you check it out. We had Jacob Mayfield on last month, and he was so much fun talking about tarot cards.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so I have some listener mail.
Okay.
We are going to continue with Nikki's story from...
So this is part 2 then.
It's part 2 of 3. So in our last part of the story, there was some creepiness happening in the basement. And at this point, Nikki and her husband had just both talked to each other and realized like, oh, this is happening to both of us. It's not just one of us.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Now we continue.
Okay, good.
Sometime later, I was going to sleep in our bedroom. Everything was all on the main floor of this house. Our living room was next door to the bedroom. The formal dining room was just on the opposite side from the master bedroom, and that led into the kitchen, with a small hallway off it to the bathroom, and the 2 bedrooms were on either side of that hallway. There was a big pantry as part of the kitchen and a door to the back entry, which led to the back door and then the basement. In the kitchen was another door leading up to the huge attic. So, settling in to sleep, Daddy is in the living room, watching TV with our furry children, and baby A is already asleep down the hall in her room. I'm just lying in the dark, hearing Daddy laughing at the TV, wishing a fuzzy buddy would come in and cuddle with me. Then I felt pressure. It was like a force all up and down my body, pushing down on me, but not pushing me down into the mattress, like an invisible weight slowly crushing me and then taking the breath out of me, literally. I couldn't breathe. It was terrifying. I couldn't talk either. The pressure, no way to take in breath. I started to panic. I thought of my little girl. I breathed out the word help. The pressure instantly lifted from me. I felt like my life had just been threatened now by this thing. I was so scared, but I was also already thinking about paranormal stories I'd read when I was younger. I had read several instances of experiences happening to other people over the years, all of it related to ghosts. Now I was convinced a ghost was in this house. I was shaken, but I forced myself to get up and out of bed. I toddled out to Daddy in our living room and I told him what had just happened. His eyes got as big as saucers. The natural question to ask is, what now? We didn't know. I had to think about it. The next day, I had my plan and I was ready to follow through with it. Daddy went off to work around mid-morning, Baby went down for her nap, and I had a quiet house for a good 2 hours. I was tired of being terrified in this house. My family needed to make it our new home, and this other person wasn't letting us. I did the dishes and waited for Baby to drift off. Once I was sure she was asleep, I went into the dining room. I took a deep breath and I started to talk to the ghost. It took a lot for me not to just lay into this guy too. I knew enough not to make him mad, but he needed to know how mad I was. I was firm, but I couldn't help but get emotional. I explained that we had bought this house. We were not flippers, and we couldn't leave. Our plan was to fix it up for our family. We wanted to make happy memories here. This was not going to be our forever home, but it was our first, and it meant a lot to us. We can share the space together, but like it or not, we're here to stay for a long while. And the terrorizing had to stop. Just stop. All this spirit needed to do was look around already at the work, the money we'd spent. Look at us. For heaven's sake, we do not look like millionaires. We are putting our own elbow grease into all the smaller projects, painting the interior rooms, buying all new appliances for the kitchen, pulling up carpet staples out of the dining room floors, putting our own personality into decorating this house to make it a reflection of us. I didn't need to be bullied in my own home by someone who didn't like my taste in decor. Come on. My own parents and younger brother had come down several times from River Falls, Wisconsin to help us. My mom stayed with us for 2 weeks after I had the baby to help with more house projects, to be with me while I healed and transitioned into motherhood. Daddy's sister came from Lombard, Illinois to help us move in, and his parents, retired in Tennessee, sent money to help pay for all kinds of incidentals. If that's not love, I don't know what is. If this ghost couldn't see this going on, then he had no right to be judging us so harshly. It was one big, well, duh moment that had to be explained to this other person. No wonder I started to cry by the end of that conversation. It worked, though. The feeling of anger lifted, palpably. I tried to show this man, because I felt this presence was male, maybe in his 60s, a thankfulness for his cooperation and a genuine gratefulness that he never went for our baby or our pets in his communications. The basement became a much less scary place for Daddy and I. Sometimes I thought I could feel a small presence of contentment and approval from this man. I felt like he liked what he saw going on with this house he cared so much for. The area by the work table continued to be an area of uneasiness, but the angry eyes on me were gone completely. Now it seemed like a feeling of uncertainty, and by not liking my totes and boxes in this space. Another conversation needed to happen between me and him about this area. After that, no more uncertainty, and a more relaxed feeling of mutual respect started to simmer through the house. This lasted for a couple more months.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks again, Nikki, for sending that in. And we always want to hear your stories. You can send them to us via email at info@ghostlypodcast.com, or you can use the contact us form on ghostlypodcast.com. And one of our favorite ways, of course, is to get it in the actual mail at P.O. Box number 264, Geneva, Illinois, 60134.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. Obviously things seem to be content for now, but I'm guessing there's going to be more.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next part of this story.
All right. So we do talk about poles
Oh,
from our St. Augustine's Lighthouse episode.
I don't like them because I've been losing lately.
You lost like one.
Yeah.
You won many, many before then.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I needed that ego boost there.
All right. So yes was at 66.7% and no at 33.3.
The overall rating, though, is at 4.67. So that's pretty good
That's
for...
actually pretty high.
Yeah, for, I mean, a victory of, like that. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, they say it's one of the most haunted places.
Yeah, and we had a couple people on like our social media and stuff like that say that they've been there and that they've experienced things there.
Yeah, if you are not on Ghostly Society, I recommend
highly recommend
today.
Ghostly Society
On Facebook.
On Facebook, you just search for Ghostly Society. You have to answer a couple of questions to get in. They're not trick questions. I'll tell you that much. There's pretty obvious answers to the ones that we need an obvious answer to.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yep. So definitely find us there. All right. So I do have a ghost story.
You have a ghost story?
Yeah, I kept it short since I knew we had a long listener mail today. So this story is actually based on one that was reported in the Bailiwick Express website.
Oh, okay.
It's time for a spooky tale from Rebecca.
I had the oddest encounter today at work. I'm a yeoman warder at the Tower of London. Now, we certainly have all heard the stories of paranormal things happening, and some of my coworkers have even claimed to have experienced something themselves. I have not. Until, I guess, today. This woman came in with her teenage daughter, maybe 17 years old. They were in one of the rooms with engravings that serve as a reminder to some of the tower's prisoners and what they went through. The woman and her daughter asked me to explain these sad decorations. As I started to explain, the daughter just started to wail, saying, so much suffering. I was taken aback and immediately stopped explaining these dark topics and asked the mother if her daughter was all right. She assured me that her daughter was fine. She just sometimes picks up the emotions when she's in a place. The two then moved on to an area close by where an altar used to be that had more engravings. The daughter started again. So much suffering. I tried to tell her that everyone is gone now. She responded, "Not him," and put out her hand as if she was touching a man's shoulder. Then she pointed at an engraving reading Thomas Talbot, 1948. I'm not sure what happened, but I'll tell you the hair on my arms was raised. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to be in that room and feel the same.
Wow. Okay. So, but you told us in the beginning that this was from the Bailiwick Express, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, you only made up some parts of it. Then.
I just made it into a story version, but this is something that this guard said happened.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to take a short break and then we're going to return with the history.
Sounds good.
Facts. From a skeptic point of view. Facts. He presents it all to you. Facts.
All right, we are back. And let's just get into the Pat Facts.
Pat Facts.
I just want to start this by saying this is really strange for me when doing this history because I'm so used to doing the U.S. history parts.
Yeah.
Where, it starts in like 1700s. Maybe you might see a 1600.
Yeah.
But rare. This is like this is over 1,000 years old, or it's getting close to 1,000
Yeah.
years old. 1,000 years
With the Romans and everything, yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah. So it's weird. It's weird to go back that far.
Mm-hmm.
So the history, I'm trying to summarize this as best I possibly can.
Again, the point of this is not to give us the full history of the Tower of London.
Yeah.
We're just getting a taste.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want more history, definitely Google it. It is worth reading about. If you like strategy and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So the Duke of Normandy, William the Conqueror, was invading England. And to defend the land he had taken, he built castles.
Okay.
In fact, William was responsible for building 36 castles while he was invading England. The Tower of London, though, had to be something special when he got into London to get the people of London on his side. It was built on a Roman town wall. Now, most of those are pretty small, you know, so they had to build up upon that. But still, it gave them, you know, an idea of like location and stuff.
Sure.
Most of the early Norman castles were built from timber, but by the end of the 11th century, a few, including the Tower of London, had been renovated or replaced with stone.
Okay.
Work on the White Tower began in around 1078. The exact date is uncertain, though. The White Tower is the earliest stone keep in England, and it was the strongest point of the early castle. At the latest, it was probably finished by 1100, when Bishop Ranulph Flambard was imprisoned there.
Okay.
Flambard was loathed by the English for exacting harsh taxes on them.
Well, I don't feel so bad.
Although he is the first recorded prisoner held in the Tower of London, he was also the first person to escape from it, using a smuggled rope secreted in a butt of wine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that were imprisoned there, and a lot of people that escaped there.
Interesting. I did not realize.
If you wanted to escape from here, you could. That's just pretty much it.
Well, some people don't escape, and I don't think it's their fault.
I don't know. It seems like if you wanted to, you can bribe people and get out somehow. I don't know. When people were imprisoned at the Tower of London, though, they were imprisoned in luxury.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they even had servants.
Oh, well, there were a lot of royalty that was in prison there.
There's one person that started his family while being a prisoner, and they brought his whole family in, and he expanded upon his family while in there.
Wow.
The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records that in 1097, King William II ordered a wall to be built around the Tower of London. So that's where we get the whole castle thing, kind of. In the late 1100s, Longchamp became the constable of the tower and wanted to build a moat around the castle.
That sounds like something people did.
Longchamp was an idiot, though. He wanted it to be filled by the River Thames, but he couldn't.
Okay.
So he tried and he tried in vain, and he couldn't fill it. In the 13th century, King Henry III and Edward I extended the castle, essentially creating it as it stands today, as far as like the amount of land.
Yeah.
Henry III also had a zoo in the Tower of London.
I heard about that.
Yeah, so there was an elephant in there at one time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and there's actually some like statue or something like that of the elephant, I believe, someplace in there.
Okay.
Up until Henry VIII, the tower was used as an occasional residence for the monarch. It wasn't the permanent home, although some of them spent a lot of time there.
That is really weird. It's like, these are the people that I keep imprisoned. Also, I'm going to live here.
Because it was luxury, you know?
Yeah.
And the people that you had imprisoned there were usually, they usually weren't like murderers or anything like
political
that.
rivals or
Yeah,
things
exactly.
like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And royalty sometimes.
Yeah.
King Edward I finally filled the moat and made major restoration to the castle, including the newly designed arrow slits, because that was a new thing of the day, you know, where they have little slits in the wall where they can shoot arrows out of.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and that was between 1275 and 1285, over 150 years after Longchamp tried to fill the moat.
Right.
Yeah. In 1321, Margaret de Clare, Baroness Battlesmere, became the first woman imprisoned in the Tower of London after the refused Queen Isabella, she refused her to be admitted to the castle that she had and ordered the archers to target Isabella, killing 6 of the royal escorts.
Not nice.
Yeah. So generally reserved for high-ranking inmates. That's the words I was looking for.
Ooh.
The Tower was the most important royal prison in the country. During the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, the Tower of London was besieged with the king inside.
Ooh.
When Richard rode out to meet with Wat Tyler, the rebel leader, a crowd broke into the castle without meeting resistance and looted the jewel house.
Oh.
And the Archbishop of Canterbury, which was Simon Sudbury, took refuge in St. John's Chapel, hoping that the mob would respect the sanctuary. However, they did not. And they went in there and took him away and beheaded him at the Tower Hill.
I think we should remember this for the ghost stories.
Okay. Shortly after the death of Edward IV in 1483, the notorious murder of the princes in the Tower is traditionally believed to have taken place.
Mm-hmm.
The incident is one of the most infamous events associated with the Tower of London. Edward's V's uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester.
Best guess.
Duke of Gloucester was declared Lord Protector, while the prince was too young to rule. Traditional accounts have held that the 12-year-old Edward was confined to the Tower of London along with his younger brother Richard. The Duke of Gloucester was proclaimed King Richard III in June. The princes were last seen in public in July of 1483. It has traditionally been thought to have been most likely reason for their disappearance is that they were murdered late in the summer of 1483. And that reminds me is that there's a thing going on right now. Where's Kate?
Oh, I thought about that earlier when you were talking about all of the London
Where's
royalty.
Kate been?
Yeah.
I mean, she was supposed to come back in March. She had her surgery. And
supposedly she's going to be coming out and making a statement at some point.
Yeah, we're talking about Kate Middleton, and there's some weird facts with this. Like there was a mother's picture or something like that with distorted images in it.
Well, supposedly again, it was so photoshopped.
Yeah.
That the AP was like, no, we have to, you can't use this photo. It's too photoshopped. Yeah.
So if you want to find out more about where Kate Middleton is, Google that. And there's some really interesting things from it. So the beginning of the Tudor period marked the start of the decline of the Tower of London's use as a royal residence. Now, I have a relative that was one of the Tudors.
Oh, okay.
Sir John Harrington. Made the first flushable toilet. Amongst other things. He was also he was one of the Queen's godchild.
Oh, okay.
At the time.
Well, we owe him a great debt.
Yeah. So Sir John Harrington is my great grandfather.
What, did you count those greats?
No, I'm just making it up.
Okay.
I don't know how many greats it is. Probably less than that.
Mm-hmm.
As 16th century chronicler Raphael Holmshed said, the tower became used more as
an armories and a house of munition, and thereunto a place for the safekeeping of offenders, than a palace royal for a king or queen to sojourn in.
Ooh. Executions were usually carried out at Tower Hill, so that's the reason why they drugged the Bishop of Canterbury there, rather than in the Tower of London itself. And 112 people were executed on the hill over 400 years. So that's a lot of people.
It is.
And there were some that were done a little bit closer. Mm-hmm. So Anne Boleyn is one of the most intriguing figures in British history. Her love match with Henry VIII and her subsequent execution at the Tower of London after only 3 years of marriage have inspired dozens of books and films. And probably that I'm Henry VIII, I am. Henry VIII, I am.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he killed and got rid of many, many wives, but Anne Boleyn is probably the most famous. Yeah.
So the last person to be executed at the Tower was German spy Joseph Jacobs, who was shot on August 15th of 1941.
Okay.
I wonder what war that was part of. World War II, yeah. The Tower of London has become established as one of the most popular tourist attractions in the country. It has been a tourist attraction since at least the Elizabethan period, when it was one of the sites of London that foreign visitors wrote about, because Elizabeth I was actually one of the prisoners there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Its most popular attractions were as I said, the royal, the armor that they wore.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
And the crown jewels also garner much interest and have been in public display since 1669.
There you go.
They also have the ones from India and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun to go look at fancy jewels. That's true.
Yeah, but I mean, those definitely have blood on them, I gotta say.
Oh,
all
yes,
of them do. And
definitely.
the English have taken a lot from different places and never given back, even now when they realize that they're in the wrong.
Absolutely.
So, whatever. We are not England, so I'm not gonna.
We're not here to judge.
Yeah,
I mean, we
are,
do judge.
We are here to
totally
judge.
But yeah, that's true.
All right. So, do you have anything to add to this history?
I've got some things that we'll talk about as far as like people that are potential ghosts.
Okay.
But I think we'll save that for the debate.
All right. Well, we're going to take another break, and then when we return, Rebecca's going to give us some evidence, and I'm going to debate that.
Sounds good.
All right, Rebecca, we're back.
We are back. All right. So let's get into this debate.
Yeah, let's do
All
it.
right. So I wanted to start with a list of some of the people that are often listed as those that haunt the tower. So we talked about the royals, right, that are there. And there are so many lists, and they're not all the same. There's a lot of like, here's the top 13, the top 8, the top 23. I mean, there's a lot of lists. So I'm just including some of the commonly mentioned ones. And then we'll get into the evidence, and some of them maybe are associated with some of these people, but I think, it's open to interpretation.
Okay.
So Anne Boleyn, who we talked about, Guy Fawkes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ferretti.
Torture. He was the one that was tortured at the tower after being arrested in a plot to assassinate James I in Parliament. Remember? And they have bonfire night with regards to him. And anyways, 1605. Okay. Henry VI was murdered in the King's private chapel. Sir Walter Raleigh was imprisoned for many years in the Tower. He was beheaded at Westminster, though.
Nice.
Margaret Pole was executed. She was the mother of a pope that opposed King Henry VIII.
Yeah, how dare you?
Yes. Lady Jane Grey was executed. She was the 9 Days Queen.
Okay.
She was the sister of some. Oh man, I should have remembered my history more. But anyway, she kind of represented the Anglican Church, and so she was beheaded. Our Bella Stewart was imprisoned for marrying without royal consent. She was either starved to death or she starved herself to death. And then it's the young princes who you told the story of. I will say, I think they recently found bones.
Well, they found bones actually in the 1600s that they believed were their bones. But the problem was they also later on found that there was something at that same spot where they found the bones that would mean that they wouldn't have been, that predate the Tower of London.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I feel like recently, though, like something happened more recently where they're feeling a little bit more like they might have some proof, but I didn't dive deep, so we're not gonna claim to know anything. And then there's a lot of other like nameless figures, a woman in white, for example, and things like that. But then I also wanted to mention that a bear is often talked about
the zoo.
From the menagerie, the zoo.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned the elephant. I think there's several wire statues of animals, and I think the bear and the elephant and some others are a part of that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go into our first story, which involves maybe Anne Boleyn. Okay, one night while standing on duty, a guardsman of the 60s Rifles, which is like the name of the unit,
I thought it was like a groovy kind of hippie army or something.
Yeah, right.
Hey man, no passing by, man.
Saw a white figure emerge from the dimness of a doorway of the Queen's house, formerly the lieutenant's lodgings. It was long held tradition, now discounted, that it was here that Anne Boleyn spent the days prior to her execution on the 19th of May, 1536. So for a long time, people believe that Anne was in that space, but we've since found out that she's not. That's why I say, is this her ghost or not? I'm not sure. Okay. So the story that I read said, no one seems to inform her ghost of this, but I say maybe it could be somebody else. For it's here that her ghost again supposedly returns. In 1864, a sentry was astounded by a headless figure dressed in white that suddenly came at him from the darkness. As the ghost moved towards him, he challenged it. As the apparition emerged from the shadows, he saw to his horror that it was headless. The guardsman raised his bayonet, only for the figure to walk straight through it and himself. At that, the guardsman fainted with terror. He was found by his angry commanding officer. As a result of the evening's unusual events, the guardsman was court-martialed for drunkenness and dereliction of his duty. Fortunately, 2 other people revealed that they too saw the figure at the spot. In addition, 2 other guardsmen swore that they had watched from a window of the Bloody Tower as it approached the sentry and had heard his scream of terror as he collapsed. With this evidence, the court acquitted him.
Well, I'm going to say this is probably like just an old folk tale because it's from 1864. And there's no way of knowing exactly what this was. If it, wasn't a ghost, like let's say, for instance, Rebecca, I know it's hard for you to believe this, but imagine it wasn't a ghost. What would you say it could possibly be? It's too old for me to be able to figure this out.
Well, I thought you might be happy because, you always talk about how it's frustrating that people don't like approach the ghost.
Yeah, I am happy.
And in this case, not only did he approach it, he tried to bayonet it. Allegedly. And that the ghost went through the bayonet and him. Yeah. And that there were multiple witnesses for this. So, I mean, I don't know. And there's, there was that he was, found not guilty because people saw this apparition happen.
Yeah, but I have not seen anything about that in the history of this, about someone being acquitted because of a ghost. So I don't know how true that statement is. So I'm gonna go 1 on this one.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna give this one. I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, again, common story, and I think seems interesting. Okay, now next one is another one that is often associated with Anne. Again, she's the most popular of all these ghosts.
Yeah.
So this is inside.
She's the most popular name.
Yes.
And that's why she's the most popular ghost of this, because everything that they see is going to be attributed to Anne.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not arguing that it is Anne Boleyn. I'm just saying that there's a ghost.
That it is a ghost. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Okay. Inside the chapel of Saint Peter ad Vincula. Don't know if I said that right. In the late 19th century, so a little bit later than the story we just talked about, an officer of the guard saw lights on in the chapel of St. Peter, where Anne is buried. When he peered through the window, he saw a procession of spectral figures, knights, and their ladies moving along the aisle toward between the tombs, led by a woman he recognized as Anne. They moved towards the altar and her remains lie under as the guard watched. The vision faded and the chapel became dark again. The event was supposedly repeated in the 1950s.
All right, so I'm going to say that this, again, is part of that same kind of thing where I think it's like some kind of folk tale that they tell for whatever reason. Maybe it's, to get people to behave in the Tower of London or something like that. I don't know, whatever reason that it is has been long since gone. But I think that this could have been even like a drunken guard coming back from on duty and realizing that he hadn't been seen for a while, so make up a good story, and then you get away with it. So I'm going to go 1 with this one.
Wow. All right. I mean, all right. I just think I'll give it a 6. This one.
Okay.
There's a little less to it than this one, but I don't know. It seems like a famous one.
Sure.
And there is something about being where she's buried.
Okay.
Okay. So then next up, we're going to talk about Margaret Pole. Now, I mentioned her earlier as being a mom of a pope.
Yeah. Yes.
But there's a quote from the Tudor Society. I kind of mixed it with another quote, but mainly from the Tudor Society that I thought you should read because this is the history part, and I think it's really creepy.
Okay. The Countess of Salisbury, Margaret Pole, was executed on Tower Green in 1541 because her son, Reginald, had been appointed a cardinal by the Pope and had condemned Henry for his suppression of the monasteries. Henry VIII, unable to get his hands on Reginald, who was safe in France, picked on Reginald's 70-year-old mother. She was thrown into the tower and condemned to death by the axe. After 2 years of being imprisoned as a traitor in the tower, the frail 67-year-old Harris was executed on May 27, 1541. As a woman of noble birth, Margaret Pole was given a private execution. There are 2 accounts of her execution. One says that she was executed by an inexperienced axeman who missed her neck the first time, which, by the way, that kind of happens with the axe and stuff a lot, gashing her shoulder, and that it took a further 10 blows to finish her off. The second account tells of how she managed to escape from the block and that she was hewn down by the executioner as she ran. The second account concurs with the first in that it says that 11 blows were required. Whichever account you believe, this lady had a truly awful end.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think the guillotine, we think of that as such a horrible thing, but at the time it was seen as like a mercy.
Yeah.
As like a betterment of execution.
It was, yeah. Actually, it was a quick, easy death, but even then, the guillotine sometimes had issues too. Yeah.
Okay, so not a good execution for Margaret Pole. So supposedly her screams are heard by many on the anniversary of her death each year. On several nights in 1975, yeoman warders in the Waterloo block were woken by loud piercing screams coming from the Tower Green. These screams were also heard by men on duty in the Byward Tower. When they investigated, nothing was there. The screams were repeated a few nights later, just before dawn, when a guardsman patrolling the rear of Waterloo Block heard them and reported they came from the direction of Tower Green.
All right, so this one, my explanation for this is going to sound kind of weird, but I think it's the ravens. I think the ravens on the ground can make a sound. That's why it's like a murder of crows. Well, they make very similar sounds. Crows and ravens are very similar. And I think that that's what it is. Actually, ravens can mimic humans. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they're like parrots in that. They could even talk.
Yeah. I guess I just feel like Ravens are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the bad side of one. I guess I just feel like it wouldn't just happen then, like once a year or for like a few days once. Like that would be a common theme, and you'd be like, oh, it's those ravens.
Yeah, but okay, there could be a couple of different things that factor in here then. They could be by a different tower that they're not used to hearing them at, that they just happen to be walking around the Byward Tower or something like that, and where the ravens are to that location could make it sound totally different. It could echo. And then the other one is the Waterloo block. Heard them. They were never in the location where the sounds were actually being made. So that's why I doubt this. And this one I'm going to give a 0 to because I think the Ravens did it.
Okay. I don't know. To me, this seems like, this person had a really horrible death. And I like the second account where she was like, nope, I escaped. And she's trying to get away. And
she still got whacked 11 times.
She did. It was just horrible. But, to me, it makes sense that there would be some sort of residue there, even if it's not her ghost, but something that brings those screams. So I'm going to give that one an 8.
Okay.
All right. Edmund Lenthal Swift was the keeper of the crown jewels between 1814 and 1852. He lived inside the Tower of London with his family. You talked about, people do that.
Yeah.
He recorded a truly spooky experience. So in his own words, this happened on a Saturday night in October at, quote, about the witching hour. So again, this is something that he wrote down or said. All right. He was in the Jewel House, now Martin Tower. The windows were closed, the curtains were pulled over, and the room was lighted by a couple of candles. His family were seated within. Suddenly something very odd happened. So here it is in exactly his own words. My wife looked up and exclaimed, "Good God, what is that?" I looked up and saw a cylindrical figure, like a glass tube, seemingly about the thickness of my arm. It was hovering between the ceiling and the table. Its contents appeared to be a dense fluid, white and pale azure, like the gathering of a summer cloud, and incessantly rolling and mingling within the cylinder. This lasted about 2 minutes. Then it began slowly to move before my sister-in-law. Then, following the oblong shape of the table before my son and myself, passing behind my wife, it paused for a moment over her right shoulder. Instantly, she crouched down, and with both hands covering her shoulder, she shrieked out, "Oh Christ, it has seized me." Even now, while writing, I feel the fresh horror of that moment. Now, I don't know if this is a ghost or aliens.
Well, but it seized her, and nothing happened then?
Well, I don't think so. I think it's just like a ghost, it touches you or something.
Or it could just
like
be
that.
like some kind of illusion that you see, and then when it touches you, it doesn't do anything then. So I'm going to say...
Well, she felt it.
I'm going to say it's an illusion caused by the candle burning in that room. And the windows being closed and the curtains were pulled over, so the room was completely lit by candles. But also, you got to think about this too. In this day and age, we have all this technology. It's rare that you're in a totally blackened room. This was until the candle was lit. There's no electric lighting, so things get really scary at night. So I'm just thinking it's an illusion, and this person is very fearful and got startled.
Okay.
So I'm going to give this one a 1 as well.
Okay. To me, it seems pretty, pretty solid because it was written by the person. A lot of times when we get these stories, it's kind of like, well, supposedly this happened. This was reported back in this time, some sort of really long ago thing.
Yeah.
But in this case, we actually have somebody that took the time to really write down what they saw. And I don't really see anything for them to gain by writing it down. So for me, it feels pretty good. Again, I don't know exactly what it was. I'd love to hear what people think it is. But I will say an 8 for this one.
In that day and age, there was over 100 people that would live in the Tower of London. Mm-hmm. So it was like a little village, and out of all those people, this is all that you have as evidence as far as not everybody saw something. So why did these people see something but other people didn't?
I know. Was in their chambers. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
Maybe they're doing a little drinky.
I don't know about that. I had, again, so many stories. It's always hard to pick them. But I thought this last one, I always like to give different kinds of evidence when I can.
And I appreciate that.
So this is from 6 months ago.
Okay.
So it was a comment made on a YouTube video. I don't know how long it happened, but it says a couple of years ago. So I don't think it was too.
Yeah, the comment was 6 months ago.
Six months ago, said it happened a couple years ago.
Sure.
And I wanted us to remember back to what you talked about. There was a man who died in a chapel.
Yes.
So anyways, this is from Snuff Puppy 1, 6 months ago, said, yeah, it's haunted. I saw a ghost in the chapel in the White Tower a couple of years ago. It's quite tiring walking to the top, so I just sat in the beautiful chapel, resting for a couple of minutes when I looked up and saw the ghost of a priest walking behind the altar area. Weirdly, I was more irritated than scared, as I felt it was the signal to leave, but I was still too tired to go. So I said out loud, oh, for God's sake, all right then, and hauled myself up on my feet and walked out of there. When I got to the bottom of the tower again, gift shop that used to be the torture area, I mentioned the ghost to an attendant.
I mean, I guess it's still the torture area.
I guess. I mentioned the ghost to an attendant. She said, oh, yes, we have a lot of sightings here. So I think there probably are a lot of sightings in general in the tower as a whole that the workers are aware of. Just accept.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Snuff Puppy, how you, I don't know how you knew it was a ghost of a clergy member.
Well, I'm guessing it was, see-through or things like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know exactly how. So that makes it difficult to be able to argue this point. I'm going to say that it wasn't. It was a reflection of something else. And, but I do understand her being tired or him being tired or whatever, him, her, them, whatever it is. I understand being tired. This place is a lot of walking. It is a lot of walking. I had no idea.
I really just always thought it was like one space.
No, it is humongous. And it's a lot of walking through, all these things. And then, like in the White Tower, if you want to go up into that, I don't think I did. I was a little bit more spry in those days, so I might have.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I did. But one thing I didn't like about England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales is the stairs. Is that their stairs were built different. They're like smaller.
They're for people with very tiny feet.
Yeah, and I do not have tiny feet. I wear a size 14 shoe, so
yeah, it is not meant for people.
It
with
is
big
very
feet.
difficult to get around in those kind of things. Yeah. So I definitely agree. And the tour guide, I mean, they're going to say stuff like that. That's what they do.
Well, it wasn't a tour guide; it was the guy that worked there. But yes,
yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. But that's what they do. This is built on tourism, so. I'm going to go 0 on this one.
Wow.
I'm so confident that it was some kind of reflection of something that she didn't actually see a ghost clergy member, ghost priest.
I'm going to say a 7 on this one. Again, there's, this is, not the only person who reports ghosts, in the, like chapel areas of the tower. But I thought this was a nice recent story to mention.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And the fact that, again, not the only time that I've heard that the workers there, just like, yeah.
Hey, just because I don't believe it doesn't mean I don't appreciate them. So I do appreciate them.
So yeah. Okay, all right. Instead of 7.
So what would be your overall rating?
So overall rating then, I think I'm going to go 7.
Okay.
I think I gave 1 8. And like 1 6, but otherwise it was 7.
I'm gonna have to go 1. Most of the time I gave a 1, so that's pretty high for me.
That is really high for you. Again, this place is haunted.
All right, so that brings us to the closing arguments. This is our last chance to convince you to vote our way. We are each given 1 minute of uninterrupted time. We will each time each other on our cell phones to keep each other honest. And are you ready, Rebecca?
I am.
Go.
All right. So Tower of London has been a site of great joy, but also of great sorrow and tragedy over the years. We mentioned just a few of some of the most famous people that have been held prisoner there, that have been tortured there, that have been wrongly persecuted and held there. I mean, a lot of times, these royals, it wasn't like, Pat said, they weren't murderers. They were just people that were, political rivals or were a different religion or whatever it was. And so when something like that happens to you and then you end up getting executed there, it's not surprising to me that there is a lot of energy that's there, or a lot of ghosts that feel like they can't move on because of what happened to them there. Lots of stories and different kinds of stories from all periods of time over the years. So it's haunted.
All right. Oh,
Just made that.
Just made it. Wow.
Yeah. All right. You ready?
Yes.
And go.
There's no perfect formula to create ghost. There's no way that we say, okay, well, if this happens and this happens, then that means that there has to be ghost. Because sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Although long history seems to mean for people that there tends to be ghosts there. I don't think that there's anything there. I think these people are just, it's kind of scary being in this particular area, knowing the history of it. And it's just a scary place to begin with. It's a freaking castle. I mean, there's arrow slits in the wall where they would shoot people out of. Although, the Tower of London didn't actually see much action as far as like that goes, but it has seen some. And I'm just going to say that there's not enough evidence to prove that there is, because of the hundreds of people that don't see ghosts there.
Okay.
All right. So I want to thank everyone so much for listening. Please share us with your friends and family, as word of mouth is our best advertisement. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And we have a bunch of VIP producers that I like to name: Andrew,
Alicia,
Becky,
Kim,
Ernie,
Cindy,
Kevin,
Jessica,
Alice,
Aaron,
Hope,
and Candy.
And on the next episode of Ghostly, we're going to be talking about Skeptics Day 2024.
Ooh.
I don't know what we have planned yet. We're still working on that.
I have some ideas.
But it will not be the regular Ghostly episode. Just so you know, if you tune in and it's something bizarre, that is what it's supposed to be. And it comes out on April 3rd. So slightly after we consider April Fool's Day to be Skeptics Day.
Yep.
That's the day that I claimed as Skeptics Day. Until next time, stay ghostly.
Bye.